So, Sabbath, self-titled album, just turned 50 not long ago. 50 years old. It's hard to believe that, it's been that long. This is an album that was released on February 13th, 1970 in the UK. It was a Friday the 13th they released it on. And it was released a little bit later in the US, in June of 1970. So, yeah, what do you say about Sabbath? I mean, they're a band that just hits. They've hit all corner of the world. So many. Everybody knows who they are. A lot of fans, man. Pioneers. Yeah, definitely. And some people say that this album is the one that started heavy metal. Uh, began. It started it all. It was like the milestone. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's the album that started heavy metal. I don't know if we can take all that credit because I mean, at the time, you had bands and in the U.S. you had like Mountain, Blue Cheer, or, Iron Butterfly, Jefferson Airplane that was experimenting with it. And then in the UK you had the Who, you had Led Zeppelin who were coming around at the time, and Deep Purple, they were around. So I don't know, it. I don't know if it started heavy metal, but I'd say it definitely solidified, and made it legit. And it was the album that was like, whoa, it made everybody, recognize it. It is such a killer freaking album, man. I can't state that enough. This album was recorded in one day in October of '69. It was recorded at Regent Sound Studios in London. Not sure if I've ever heard of that. It's a very short album. I'd say the U.S. version clocks in at 38:12, and there is two versions. There's the one that was originally released on Friday the 13th in February of '70 was the difference between that one. It had a song on it. It omitted the song "Wicked World" and put a song by Crows they covered called "Evil Woman," which was pretty cool. And the U.S. version did it omitted "Wicked Woman" and had "Wicked World" on it. So that's the difference there. And on in UK it was released on a label called Vertigo that dealt with just really progressive acts and acts that were kind of like out of the norm, and that which at that time it definitely was. Black Sabbath definitely was. In the U.S. it was released on Warner Brothers Records, which was pretty mainstream, I think, even then, mainstream label. It was produced by Roger Bain, and the interesting thing about him is he produced I think a couple of Sabbath albums, if I'm not mistaken, and he produced Priest, his first one, Rock'n'Rolla, and they seem to have different accounts of him. He was kind of one of those hands-off producers, Black Sabbath was really pleased with him. And I don't know, Judas Priest, they seem to have a different opinion. They said that he included a lot of songs that they didn't want on there, and just, made the album go in a direction they didn't want to go. And I don't know if that was so much production technique as it was just not being happy with the song selection. But Sabbath seemed to really dig him, doing this album. Artwork on the album was done by Keith McMillan, an artist, and he done it at the Maple Durham Water Mill, which is in Oxfordshire, England. And it was like he done it like used taxidermy for, and a bunch of stuff to make it eerie, and like Kodak infrared aerochrome film, which was designed for like aerial photos, for effect. That's where you get that effect. And the crazy thing is, they had a model that they didn't know for a long time. They didn't know her name. They had forgotten who she was and everything. And just recently, it turned out that this this model, she turned up, and her name was Lisa Livingstone. And The interesting thing is she was just a young mom at the time, and she wasn't even really into Sabbath. So hear her tell it. She wasn't into Sabbath. She was more into like the band like the Beatles and Cream, and not the heavy stuff. She thought Sabbath was too heavy for her at the time. And it's a really cool cover, man. It's just an eerie looking cover. Going as I was talking about earlier in the production wise, Roger Bain, he took a really hands off approach to it, and that's where you get that live sound. And actually, it was, in fact, it was recorded live. It was, they just went in there, and aside from they did a couple overdubs, maybe in NIB or Sleeping Village, and the Rain, Stormy, Send the Bells at the first of Black Sabbath, the song. They did that, but other than that, it was all live. They just played live, put Ozzy in the booth, let him sing with them, and they were at the bar, in 12 hours. It was done in one day, so that's crazy. And I think that's a lot of beauty of the album. It was done, live, and it's innocent, and you could even hear like some of the mistakes, and that adds to it, to the sound. It makes it sound good. There's a lot of pan effect too. Like you got this going on, well, not pan effect. It's probably I don't know how they did that. You get one sound, you have a guitar in one ear, and then it's like silent over here, and then some other thing will kick in over here on in this side of the speakers or headphones or whatever. And yeah, you got a lot of that going on in it. And I dig that. That's an old like 60s technique or something, man, that they did, or a method that they did then. Tony, one thing I want to mention, Tony Iommi started recording the album with a Fender. It was like a white Fender that he used up to that point, and something happened where the pickups, fucked up or something, and he had to he had a Gibson SG, and he tried that. He just bought it, and when he played that, he was like, "Yeah, that's the guitar he became famous for, was the Gibson SG." And so half the album was done with Fender, or I don't want to say half. Some of it was done with Fender, and some of it was done with the Gibson. And I can't tell the tracks that are between Fender and Gibson. I don't know. I've went back and listened to. I want to say a lot of Warning was done with the Fender, especially that bluesy stuff he was doing. But I mean, I don't know for a fact. It is interesting to listen while you listen though to see that. And track wise, yeah, the Black Sabbath was the first one. It's got the real eerie intro. The ones I was talking about was overdubbed, and then just everybody knows this boom 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 kicks in. That's classic, I think every song on the album is great myself. It's a masterpiece. I mean, Sleeping Village, you got right there, you hear Geezer and Bill Ward just groove. It's so groovy, man. It's this album really, Bill Ward really shines on this album. You hear a lot of his like work, which is just it's not the hard, but it's groovy hard. It wasn't like Bonham or nothing where it was like bam bam bam, but it was just a groovy kickback kind of heavy, hard kind of hard rock sound. I love Bill Ward. I've always loved his drumming. And Wicked World is on the US version. That's my favorite Sabbath song ever. I love that song. I would have loved to have covered that in my old band that I was in. I would have loved to seen what I was telling a friend of mine that jammed in our band with us, and I was telling him I'd love to see what I could do with that middle part on the keyboards, that dreary, like melancholy, dreamy, like mitro or middle part, and it goes on, to Warning, the other tracks, and the last track was Warning. That song is so cool. It's a cover song too. I can't remember who covered it, man. If anybody can tell me in the comments, I'd appreciate it, because I cannot remember. I knew I seen it, but earlier, but I couldn't remember who the band was. Some drummer, one of his band. It's like an English drummer. The band he was in, I can't remember his name. But yeah, if you guys want to tell me, that's awesome. I'd love to know. That in Warning, going back to that. I love, it's his homies thing, man. It's like, he does that. This is where he's just brilliant. You can see he's brilliant, man. It's like, he does that like Lightning Hopkins, John Lee Hooker like blues, boogie. Then it goes back to the little psychedelic dreamy thing, and then all of a sudden, I think it's about the 12 mark. It's like, boom, that Sabbath distortion, just blasting. I love that's so awesome. This whole album's good. Whether you like, I like, going back Wicked World. I liked it. It's one of my favorite Sabbath songs. I liked it a lot better than Evil Woman. Evil Woman, the Crow cover they did, was okay. It was, it's a good song, and they did a good job of covering it, but it wasn't Wicked World to me. They were kind of forced to do it because they were wanting to hit. The record company was wanting to hit at the time in England, and I don't know if it ever became a hit for Sabbath, but it was a hit for Crow in America. I don't know if it ever became. I don't think it did because they never play it live, and I think it was just one of those things that they just threw away after they seen it wasn't going to be a hit, and then they put the real, Wicked World on, which is a superior song in my opinion, on the U.S. version. So yeah. Overall, rating, I give this a 5. Man, it's a masterpiece. It should be in everybody. It's an album that sounds just as good now to me as when I, first heard it when I was, 8 or 9 years old. And I think it's always going to sound good. It should be in everybody's collection. I think. It's been in my mix in some fashion for in some form or another, or CD, cassette, playlist on Spotify or whatever. It's always been in my mix, and I'd say the artwork's great. 5, man, it captures the mood of the album. It's eerie, it's scary. It's provocative. Production wise, I give it a 5 too. I mean, Roger Bain threw him in there and let him go, and that's what you're hearing Sabbath at that time when they live. When they were young and just I think Bill Ward said that they were too young to be clever. So, but they were. I mean, I thought they were anyway. So yeah, this is a great album. 5-star to me, man. What do you guys think? Is this your favorite Sabbath album? Do you think it's a classic? No. Did Black Sabbath start heavy metal, solidify heavy metal? Do you like the U.S. version more or the European version? As far as that goes, the songs "Wicked World" and "Evil Woman." Let me know, man, or just any other thoughts you guys have on it. Yeah, I want to hear from you guys, and yeah, so I'll be back with more reviews next time. So until then, just keep on rocking.